Frustratingly, the last video cut off. Just making a review of Family Guy, so I shall continue. Um, Basically, I spoke a bit about what my sort of humor is and the basic introduction to the Family Guy characters. And there are some memorable supporting characters, such as the erratic mayor West, who is played by the late Adam West, who is known for his role as Batman in the 1960s series. But there's a lot of other supporting characters, which I won't get into here. I want to focus on the actual humor of Family Guy and what works and what doesn't work, in my opinion. I'll start with the negative. Sometimes Family Guy, and this isn't just Seth MacFarlane, it's a collective thing, they don't seem to know when to end a joke. I'll give an example of this. One of the things with Family Guy is they have these cutaway segments, and some of them are very witty. So these cutaways have nothing to do with the main story plot in a particular episode, but usually a character will make a reference to them, and they're usually some sort of stereotype or some sort of observation. But sometimes the jokes within those are just panned out too long. So, for example, there was one, I think it was like a millipede pretending to be a centipede. You're an imposter, like a millipede pretending to be a centipede, something along those lines. So the centipede in the sketch starts counting the millipede's legs, and the joke is, "Oh, you're an imposter. You're not a real centipede." But they actually pan that out, so he's literally counting them all. So I think sometimes they patronize the audience a bit by panning out jokes far too long and not knowing when to say, okay, that's the point of the joke, let's cut it off there. That's, I think, a little bit lazy, and I think it's a little bit irritating because it kind of patronizes the audience. The next point I want to come to is an important point. Family Guy's never been shy of controversy, and it has been controversial. There was the episode, perhaps the episode that people most think of with Family Guy controversy, is the one that featured a teenage girl with Down syndrome that was supposed to be a reference to Sarah Palin's daughter. And in the episode, she dated Chris, but she's actually quite an unpleasant character. Now, the Family Guy creators defended this by saying that, well, actually, it just shows that people with Down syndrome are like everyone else. They could be nice or not so nice. For me, that wasn't the most controversial episode, and incidentally, the actress who done the role, who herself has Down syndrome, defended Seth MacFarlane. For me, there was one that featured on the Terry Schiavo case, which, if you recall, back in 2005, 2006, was a high profile euthanasia case in the United States. And Family Guy brought this into an episode where they basically had it as part of a school play. Now, I think that was in very bad taste, and it wasn't sort of any kind of parody or social statement. It was just a cheap, nasty joke at the expense of the Shivo family. And I will never defend something like that. I think that was frankly disgusting. To take people who are not public figures, who are a normal family who found themselves in the public eye over their legal case, to kind of make a joke about their situation, I just thought was definitely crossing a line. I think when Family Guy does parody, when it does satire, it is very good at it. I think it can be witty and it can be a powerful tool of social observation. But taking cheap shots at, a family in that situation, I definitely think that was crossing the line. And the family did say it hurt them greatly seeing that, seeing millions of people laughing at their plight. Um, I think that was a real low blow, a real cheap shot by Seth MacFarlane and the other people at Family Guy. So I do think sometimes it crosses a line from being parody or satire or even edgy humor to being just plain bad taste. And I've never had time for that. I do think there's a big difference between making a social commentary, a parody, a satire, and even dark comedy versus just downright sick comedy. And I think sometimes Family Guy crosses into that realm of kind of schoolyard bullying. Another example of this is Seth MacFarlane seems to have a fixation on female celebrities where he will, and again, it's not just him, but the creators generally have this kind of joke. They make these jokes about the appearance of celebrities. They've had a go at Renee Zellweger and numerous others. And whilst I agree that celebrities are fair game insofar as mocking their personality, I think ad hominem attacks on appearance are crossing a line. And it does seem to be directed more at women. I think that's a bit crude and unnecessary. It just seems slightly bullying, frankly, to say, oh, this person's ugly or this person's too old or whatever. That's schoolyard bullying tactics, and I don't think that's particularly smart or creative. So it's this focus on appearance rather than. I mean, I've no problem with making fun of something a celebrity is known for, and Family Guy is quite good at that. But when it gets into the appearance of someone, that to me is crossing a line. It's just like, oh well, let's make fun of the fact this person has, whatever it might be in terms of the visual appearance. Um, 9/11 references. There was an episode where they went to New York City. Actually, no, that was The Simpsons. But anyway, I think with 9/11 references actually in popular culture, that this idea of phasing out the Twin Towers, and so on in popular culture, I think is a bit silly because they existed, they were there. You can't change history. Family Guy has definitely got close to controversy with 9/11. There was one sketch, for example, Peter goes, must have been a woman pilot. And there was a sketch where he knew 19 Muslim guys, and oh, it's terrible, they all lost their friends on 9/11. He's clearly referring to the hijackers, being that Peter's an idiot. Um, there was also a controversial episode where Glenn Quagmire's sister turned up, and she's a victim of domestic violence. That attracted a lot of backlash. Now, to be fair to the show, they were more making fun of her abuser than the victim herself or the survivor herself. They were making fun of his weak ego. But I definitely think, to amalgamate that into a comedy series, I'm not sure if they can really honestly say, oh, we're calling out domestic violence. I think it's more, oh, this will be a good storyline. And I could definitely see why it was controversial. I'll give the show the benefit of the doubt. I don't think they intended to make fun of the victim. And if you watch the episode, you'll see that. But definitely, it's not the first time there's been rape jokes and, there's been a kind of trivialization of domestic violence. And I don't agree with those who say, oh, if you can't laugh about things, you can't talk about them. Some things just need to be treated with in a sensitive way, in my opinion. Um, because, real people are suffering. They had this sketch where an elephant character, I forget, they make a lot of references to other aspects of pop culture. The elephant hears a row going on next door, blatantly domestic violence, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sure there's two sides of this." Now, to try and turn something like domestic violence into a running gag is a bit cheap. Um, but before anyone accuses me of being politically correct, let me give an example of something that some people would find offensive. I think is okay. That's the racial stereotypes, and this is why Family Guy targets everyone. Okay, so they make fun of the Irish, the Italians, the Chinese, the Japanese, the Russians, the Americans, in particular the Americans, so the Canadians. So no one can really say, oh, it's racist, they're picking on my nationality or my ethnicity, because it's collective. Also, it's aimed at the collective, not at individuals. So, for example, they'll mock Asian driving, they will mock Irish drinkers, they will mock Canadian politeness, you name it. But the point is, it's evenly distributed, so no one can really. I mean, the British, goodness knows, we're a big target of Family Guy, and of course it's inaccurate. Of course we don't all speak like the Queen, but I do find the sketch quite funny, because it's just like kind of the British clones of the American characters, and it's ridiculously exaggerated. They have everyone crazy about the Queen. They have the local pub looking like it's in the 1870s. It's clearly a parody, an exaggeration. But most British people coming in with an open mind will know that. They will know that the creators don't genuinely believe all British people are like this. So I think when it comes to the racial ones, to me that's less offensive. It's less taboo because it is not aimed at individuals. It's not bullying individuals. So why did I watch Family Guy given this criticism? I do think that when it is at its best, it is very good. I do think it is good at social observation. It's been very good in terms of making references to pop culture, keeping pop culture alive. And actually, if you're a celebrity and you're parodied in Family Guy, I would be quite flattered. It's a bit like getting your face in the Week magazine or other satire. It kind of shows that you're famous enough to be parodied. It's almost a compliment. Um, so Family Guy, I think, is very good at making pop culture references, and some of them are very observant and witty. And I think it does satire well when it does that. Unfortunately, more often than not, it chooses to go into the gutter. I think the best characters are at least the standout characters. I think all the characters are memorable, but the standout characters, Stewie and Brian, I think they should have had a spin off of that rather than the Cleveland show. Very occasionally, Family Guy even has a moral message. Now, okay, the long running bullying of Meg, one could argue that they should, to not have some closure on that, that Meg actually gets her own back for once would be nice. But they do have, for example, some moral lessons. There's the example where Peter accidentally shoots Cleveland's son, who's black, and that gets into the whole racial dynamic. Family Guy treats it with humor, but I thought that episode was well handled because on one hand it is genuinely funny, on the other hand, it's not crude. It's showing the hypocrisies of social judgment. And for example, in the end of that episode, Cleveland says, "Oh well, I, another black man, shot Cleveland Jr." And then the media just goes away. So I think Seth MacFarlane is quite observant, and the creators are good at making satire when they choose to. I just wish they wouldn't get into very personalized attacks on the appearance of celebrities, and I do think some storylines, definitely the Terry Schiavo one, crossed the line. I mean, I don't blame the family for being very angry about that. If my family had went through some ordeal and some millionaire cartoonist made fun of it, I'd have a big problem with that. And bear in mind, Seth MacFarlane is in a powerful position. He's got legions of followers. So it's a David and Goliath situation. That's why he and his creators have responsibility. And it's no good just to hide behind, oh, well, it's comedy, have a sense of humor. When it comes to that sort of thing, I can understand people being angry. But overall, I think probably the positive outweighs the negative. To be honest, I think Family Guy's past its peak, but it has merit. Let me know your thoughts on Family Guy and your thoughts on my analysis. And feel free to subscribe and share. Thanks for watching.